Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to look at how you can implement the abstract factory pattern in C#. The abstract factory pattern is a creational design pattern that provides an interface for creating families of related or dependent objects without specifying their concrete classes. The abstract factory pattern is also known as a factory of factories. If you haven't watched my other video on the factory pattern, then I advise you to do so. You can find a link in the description of this video. Now, if this definition doesn't make sense yet, I'm sure that the following class diagram will make it clearer, but if it doesn't, the code will definitely do that for you. Because at Campbell Tech, we are all about simplifying complexity. Now, let's have a look at the UML class diagram. So notice we have the abstract factory, which will normally be either an interface or an abstract class. It contains two methods, create product A and create product B, where create product A returns abstract product A and create product B returns abstract product B. Now, you'll notice that concrete factory 1, when the create product A method is invoked, it'll return product A1 or concrete product A1, and when the create product A method on concrete factory 2 is invoked, it'll return concrete product A2. Similarly, when create product B is invoked on concrete factory 1, it'll return concrete product B1, and when the create product B method on the concrete factory 2 is invoked, it'll return concrete product B2. Now you might say, hang on, you said it's going to make more sense when you show us the UML class diagram. And I know, looking at it from this angle, it seems quite confusing. But let me show you the UML diagram that is based on our use case that we are going to use when we code the abstract factory pattern. We are going to base our use case on the localization or internationalization use case. Now, don't worry, we're not going to try and rewrite the default localization code. We're going to keep it simple to ensure that you understand exactly how to implement the abstract factory pattern. So here, you'll notice that our abstract factory is called international factory with two methods, create language and create capital city. That brings us to our abstract products. Our abstract product A is language, that's an interface, and then our abstract product B is capital city, with language having a single method greet and capital city having two methods that needs to be implemented, including get population and list top attractions. For our concrete product A, we have English, implementing the language interface, and Spanish as our concrete product A2, also implementing the language interface. Then concrete product B1 is London, implementing the capital city interface, and Madrid implementing the capital city interface also. And then we've got England factory for our concrete factory 1, and then Spain factory as our concrete factory 2. And then, as you have guessed, when we invoke the create language method on the England factory, it will return English. And when we invoke the create capital city method, it will return London. For the Spain factory, it will return Spanish as the language and Madrid as the capital city. Okay, so now it's time to write some code. Let's implement the abstract factory pattern. I would suggest starting with the abstract products first. So let's go ahead and create a new interface and call it iLanguage. Now, as mentioned, the iLanguage interface is going to be our abstract product A. It's only going to have a single method that returns void, and let's call that method greet. This is going to be a method that when implemented, somebody will be greeted in a specific language. Next, let's go ahead and create abstract product B. So let's create another interface and call it I capital city. And I capital city is going to be our abstract product B. Now the capital city interface is going to contain two methods this time. Firstly, a method that returns the population. Let's call it get population, and that'll be returned as an integer. And then let's go ahead and add another method that will return a list of top attractions for a given capital city. So let's create a method that returns a list of string, and we can go ahead and call it list top attractions. Okay, so now we have our abstract product A, the I language interface, and our abstract product B, the I capital city interface. So let's continue to focus on abstractions. Let's go ahead and create another interface and call it I International Factory. Now the I International Factory is going to be our abstract factory. So let's call this abstract factory. Right. And then this time it's going to have two methods. Firstly, one that creates our abstract product A, and that is language. So it'll return I language, and we'll call it create language. And then another method that returns abstract product B, which is I capital city, and we'll call it create capital. So now all of our abstractions have been created, our abstract factory, and then our abstract product A and abstract product B. Now let's go ahead and create our concrete product classes. So create a new class and call it English. And as mentioned, this is going to be concrete product A1. And as you have guessed, we are going to implement the I language interface. Go ahead and implement the interface. And then here, we are simply going to print out something to the console because we want to keep it simple and focus on the abstract factory pattern implementation rather than trying to distract you with some sort of fancy implementation. So let's simply print out to the console.writeLine, and we'll print out hello. So we'll say the English way of greeting somebody is hello. Next, let's go ahead and create our concrete product A2. So let's create a new class and let's call it Spanish. As mentioned, this will be our concrete product A2. And then again, go ahead and implement I language. Implement the interface, and then this time we are going to greet somebody in Spanish. So we'll say console.writeLine, and we'll say hola. And that is how you greet somebody in Spanish. Okay, next up, let's create the concrete product classes for abstract product B, which is our I capital city interface. So firstly, for the concrete product B1, we'll create London. And like I said, it'll be concrete product B1. And then again, you've guessed correctly, it'll implement I capital city, our abstract product B interface. Implement the interface, and then we need to implement two methods this time. Firstly, for returning the total population of London. At the time of the recording, the estimated population was 8.9 million. So let's say return 8.9 million people. And then as the top attractions, let's say return new list of string. and then we'll return Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, and Big Ben. Just say return in front there. Okay, so now we have implemented our concrete product B1, London. Let's create our concrete product B2, and that will be Madrid as the capital city of Spain. Concrete product B2. Again, go ahead and implement I capital city. And then let's go ahead and implement both of these methods. At the time of this recording, the estimated population in Madrid was 3.2 million. So let's say return 3.2 million people. And then for the top attractions in Madrid, we'll return new list of string. And then we'll say it is Royal Palace, Prado Museum, and Retiro Park. So now we have implemented our concrete products, and all that is left is for us to go ahead and implement our concrete factories, and then we'll write the client code to use these factories. So let's go ahead and create concrete factory 1, and let's call it England factory. Okay. And like I said, it's concrete factory 1, and it's going to implement I international factory, which is our abstract factory. And then let's implement the interface. So let's go ahead and return London as the capital city of England. Then as the language of England, we'll return English. Okay. So with regards to our use case, which is an international or localization use case, we have this England factory. If we say, please produce a capital city for us, it'll produce London. And if we say, please construct a language for us, it'll construct English. And then our second concrete factory, let's create a new class and then call this Spain factory. This is going to be our concrete factory 2. And then go ahead and implement I international factory, our abstract factory. And then, as you have guessed, the capital city of Spain is Madrid, so return new Madrid. And then the language that they speak in Spain is Spanish, so let's return new Spanish. Okay, so we have now successfully implemented all of our abstract factory artifacts. So the next step is to go and create the client logic. So let's go to the program.cs class. Now, if you're not familiar with the latest versions of .NET, this is basically the shorthand of the main method. I'm going to get rid of that code, and then let's start with the abstract factory. So we can say I international factory. Go ahead and add the using statement there and say factory equals new England factory. Then let's say I language creates a new variable for our language interface equals factory, and then when we invoke the .create language, it'll return the concrete language implementation based on what factory we have specified. In other words, it's supposed to return English if we use the England factory, but we'll test that just now. And then I capital city, call it capital, equals factory dot create capital. And if everything works as it should return London, because we are specifically instantiating the England factory, but we'll test that just now. Okay, and then let's say language dot greet. Now remember, this prints out to the console already. And then let's say console.writeLine. And then we'll say total population. Of the given capital. So we'll say capital dot get population. And then we'll say console.writeLine. Top attractions. And then we'll say string dot join. And we'll say capital dot list top attractions. And then we first need to specify our separator character, and we can say comma. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and debug our code so we can add a breakpoint there. We already know it's England factory, but when we invoke create language on the factory, we get the English language back. And then when we invoke create capital, we get back London. All right. When we greet somebody, we greet them in English, hello. And then the total population of London is 8.9 million. And then the top attractions are Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, and Big Ben. Okay, if we change this to Spanish factory and debug this again, you'll see that our abstract factory returns Spanish for our I language interface, and then Madrid as the capital city. When we greet somebody in Spanish, we say hola, and the total population is 3.2 million, and the top attractions are Royal Palace, Prado Museum, and Retiro Park. Okay, so you might say, hang on, I don't like this explicit instantiation of the concrete factory up there. Now, I don't like it either, to be honest, and therefore I want to show you the provider approach. So the provider is actually a much cleaner approach that adds a level of abstraction, and then it actually makes sense that the abstract factory is a factory of factories because the provider actually contains factory methods. Now, let's go ahead and create a new class, and we can call this International Provider. Now, we need to go ahead and add two public static methods. So the first one, public static, and as you have guessed, it will return I language. Let's call it create language. And then this time we need to pass in a factory key. So I like to use enums for factory key. So let's go ahead and create a new enum class, and we can call this country. Then we can simply add two enum values, including England and Spain. Okay, so we'll pass in the country as our only parameter there. And then let's go ahead and use a switch statement. We'll switch on the country. And then we'll say if it is England, we'll return new English as the language. And then if it's Spain, will return Spanish as the language. Okay. And then we can say if it's not one of the two, we can actually go ahead and throw a new exception. Then we can say throw new invalid operation exception. And we'll simply say country invalid. And we'll just add the country there. I'll use string interpolation for this. Okay. So in other words, if you want to go ahead and extend this code, you could remember to add the enum value, for example, Germany, and then forget to add support for it in this international provider code. In other words, in this create language factory method. Okay, that's all we have to do. So let's actually go ahead and copy this entire public static method. And you're going to make some changes. Let's change I language to I capital city. We'll call this create capital. We'll say if it's England, we'll return New London. If it's Spain, we'll return Madrid as the capital city. And then if it's the default, in other words, there's not a case for a new enum value, we'll say that country is invalid. Or you could change the message to something like country not yet supported, whatever you prefer. Okay, to use this provider method, we can go ahead and update our program.cs class, and we'll remove this international factory. Let's create our enum. We'll say country, and we'll set it to country.england for now. Okay, and then change this to international provider dot create language, and there too, and then let's pass in the country enum there. Okay, all right, so that's all we have to do, but I want to improve the output here. So let's say console.writeLine. I want to just print out the country that we are talking about. And then secondly, let's print out the capital city. So I'll just say capital.getType .name. Okay, so now let's go ahead and debug our code again. So this time we're only setting an enum value. So you might ask, what makes this better than the previous code? Now, normally this type of value, like the country enum, would come from a user, either through a console or user interface, or via an HTTP request to a REST API. So this won't be hard coded, in other words. So we could assume that this value will come from a user. Okay, so when we invoke create language, it returns English, and then I'll step into the second one. You'll see that the value of country is England, and then it returns London there for us. And then we'll return England there in the console, capital city London. In London, they'll greet you in English, hello, and then the total population of London, 8.9 million. And the top attractions, Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, and Big Ben. Now this time around, we'll only change the enum value to Spain. Again, this would come from a user. I'll step into the first factory method this time, and then the value is Spain, and we'll return new Spanish. And then the capital is Madrid. There you can see Spain, Madrid. Hola, total population 3.2 million, and top attractions Royal Palace, Prado Museum, and Retiro Park. Congratulations, you now know how to implement the abstract factory pattern in C#. And you know how to implement it using the classic approach, and you also now know how to implement it using the provider approach. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. and subscribe to our channel. Till next time.